Rodgers.
Good morning. I became the contracts guy on January 12th, 2011, when I launched the Contracts Guy blog. And as the name suggests, the blog's about contracts. And the target audience initially was attorneys. And specifically, I was targeting attorneys who worked for large companies who might be interested in hiring me as a partner at Evans & Dixon to help them with their contract stuff. So it was all about contracts. It was all about lawyers and trying to help lawyers. And the reason that I launched the blog was because I had a credibility issue. So before joining Evans & Dixon, a few months before launching the blog, I'd always enjoyed the benefits of working for large, highly recognizable law firms. And so when you work for a large firm, you kind of get that halo effect of their branding. People assume you know what you're doing just because you're associated with the firm. Now, Evans & Dixon has a very strong brand, and they're known as being good at what they do. But the problem is they are an insurance defense litigation firm. I've never been to court. I don't do litigation. And so their brand and what I was trying to help them build in building their their business law department, the brand didn't help at all. And I noticed that when I was talking to people, I just didn't have that credibility that was just given to me by association that I had had before. So, and you might be wondering, why is a lawyer up here talking about a marketing issue? I kind of wonder that myself. I don't have that kind of expertise. And now to top it all off, we've got Fred Miller here, who's an expert in presentations. I'm not a professional speaker. So I guess that's what you get when you sign up to do a presentation for a group called Experts for Entrepreneurs. So if we were all lawyers, I'd feel much more comfortable with all of that. So anyway, if the marketer's in the room, and Fred, feel free to take notes. You'll have a bunch of notes to give me at the end. I will take free advice. You might have a new consulting client at the end of this if things go poorly. But just try to keep the face palms, everybody, to a minimum. So there is me. That was really the only money I spent on my blog early on. I will tell you, I'm not going to tell you how to do a successful blog. I don't really know how. I haven't really done that myself. But I am going to share with you what is a passion project for me. Launching the blog was one of the smartest things I've ever done. It's been extraordinarily fulfilling. I've built relationships throughout the country and even overseas through blogs, and it's just been very fulfilling and beneficial to me. And so I'm going to share that with you. So this is a screenshot of the homepage of the blog as it looks now. If you go to thecontractsguy.net, you can see I was on a budget because I couldn't even afford .com. But interestingly, there is no contractsguy.com. I tried to buy it from whoever it is that registered that before I got around to it, and never heard from him. So here we are, .net. If you scroll down a little bit, that's like most blogs, you've got the page where I've got my 10 most recent posts. You can see that I do my own illustrations. Again, not an expert artist, as you'll see, because I've got a few of them up here. But I've never had a budget of time or of money and resources for this blog. So, for better or for worse, this is what we've created. So if I were an expert on blogging and on trying to use websites for marketing purposes, I might advise you to do something like this. Create an attractive professional website, which I have not done. This is what the website looked at the end of last year when I switched templates to put it on a responsive web design so that it would look better on an iPhone, because when I launched the blog, people weren't reading blogs and websites on their phones so much. Unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of time at that point, so the design really took a hit. It went downhill at the beginning of this year. I like that I caught UGG in the middle of this shot, because that's what I think when I see that. It really is not the most attractive. So So I haven't really followed all of those rules, published regularly and often. I published less than once a month over the past 7.5 years since I launched the blog. I went 1.5 years without, well, I published one post in that 1.5 years. And then write shareable content. Like I said, when I initially launched the blog, my audience was lawyers, and I thought, what would lawyers want to hear about except cases? So in 2012, I blogged about every Missouri contracts case and every 8th Circuit federal contracts case. And you can see this is part 16, so it was a thrilling series. It went viral. People were emailing me asking when the next installment. And I said, you know, well, whenever the courts do their thing, we'll write about it. So here's a few numbers. For those of you who have built websites and been disappointed, you might think those are good numbers. For those of you who've had any success, you'll wonder why I'm up here talking about blogs. But so 7.5 years, I've published 172 blogs. A little over 600,000 people have gone to my site. At least that's what Google says. About 1.5 million page views. And a couple of things that I do like about these stats are the pages per session, bounce rate, and average session duration. Basically what that means to me, no face palms from the marketers, when people found my site, it was what they were looking for. They stayed, they read it, they clicked a couple of times. So that's good. My most viewed post as of 12 a.m. when I was finishing the slide up last night was Battle of the Forms. And it's kind of a technical, really boring piece. I encourage you to, Google Battle of the Forms, and it actually will be probably the first one on the search results because Google likes it. Anyway, it's been viewed over 340,000 times, and I kind of did the math on that, and I think that means that people have spent, I can't remember what the math was, thousands of hours, hundreds of hours, way more time than I spent writing it. People have spent reading it, which I feel like, throw a little good out in the world. So here's a graphical representation of the stats from the beginning. You can see it started small, as it always does. Kind of, you can't really see the line here, but there's a 10,000 visit line right through here. So, toward the end of 2014 through 2017, when I started fiddling with the design, I think it was right about 10,000, and then this little drop off at the end will correct itself at the end of the month. It's not, my audience hasn't completely left me. So, like I said, low budget. I do my own illustrations. Those of you who've seen me speak recently probably know that. This is one that I'm actually pretty proud of. It's a little bit artistic, but this was illustrating a post about a really interesting case about employment law that came down this year. Most of my posts aren't so artistic, but at least in my mind, they're kind of clever. So here's one about liquidated damages. So we've got a picture of some Jacksons floating in a pool of water. I like that because it shows that I can actually draw a ship. And then this is a post about being on the hook for your personal guarantees, so sometimes simple is good. And then I like this because it's a little bit of clever, the insurance company that has the umbrella. So this one's about insurance coverage. This might be my favorite. So this was a post about whether you hire a lawyer for information or for advice. And the post itself was inspired by a comment that a person in the audience of a presentation that I was in or at made, and they were complaining that their accountant delivered to them financial statements on a regular basis, but they didn't really explain anything. And so I started a conversation on Twitter and on my blog, and it went really well. So I wrote, so that's that, and so a little Peanuts inspired thing. I don't know if you remember the little Peanuts. Yeah. Anyway, and then this was a post about law firm efficiency, and as lawyers, are we not using our tools, but we're mowing the lawn with scissors. So this is the original. This is original build of the website. I built it on a Squarespace platform, and you can see I've got my little Twitter icon there. After a few months, I moved over to a WordPress platform because I just felt like I wasn't getting the traffic that I should be, and I thought Google probably liked WordPress better, and I was right. And so, anyway, so that's that. Kind of tweaked it a little bit. Icon, is back, different header. And then eventually I got rid of my contracts guy avatar and started using illustrations, or excuse me, pictures to illustrate, because pictures were all the rage on blogs. So, and then of course this is where it is now. So why blog? Why would I spend my time blogging? One is credibility. I think I mentioned that I had a credibility issue earlier, and that's what I was trying to solve. And I thought, well, if I put up a blog when I'm talking to someone on a one-on-one, trying to convince them to hire me because I know what I'm talking about, I can say, well, I've got this blog. They can read a couple of articles and see that I know what I'm talking about. So, has it worked? I hope. So, about a year after I started the blog, I wrote a blog post about the China Law blog, and the China Law blog is one of the most popular legal blogs then and now. I mean, it just has so big of an audience. And apparently they saw my post. That same day, they wrote a post on their blog saying this attorney in St. Louis wrote good things about us. And what I really like is what they said here. I don't have my glasses. Yeah, so the author of that post, St. Louis business lawyer Brian Rodgers, so totally understands this blog, that his post felt like confirmation of what we're seeking to achieve here. So, I mean, that was pretty cool. And in fact, I first noticed that post because one of my clients who, I have 4 minutes? All right, we're going to speed through this. You're right, I had too many slides. Anyway, I first noticed this post because one of my clients who subscribes to the email version of the blog told me about it. So anyway, I got a nice little bump in my traffic, kind of flatlined again after that. Dennis Kennedy, local commercial attorney. He was exactly my audience. If I were going to say who's my audience, it would be Dennis Kennedy. He works for MasterCard. And what he said about my blog here is, Brian has a corporate law practice, and as in-house counsel, I appreciate how his blog reflects the concerns of corporate counsel and business people. So exactly who I was wanting to see felt what I was trying to say. So I felt good about that. My best link from anybody is from the Library of Congress. They list me in with other resources for contracts in their post. That's a beginning guide to contracts. Which one of these is not like the other and doesn't belong? Well, the one on the bottom, but I'll take it. Contracts Prof blog also featured me. And my favorite probably is Ken Adams, who truly is a contract drafting expert, in response to a post that I wrote, which is my favorite, how to sign a contract. Again, if you Google how to sign a contract, you'll find it real easily. He says, I wish I'd written that. So feel really good about that. Engagement. I've written really fun, cool stuff. The billable hour is bad for your soul. It's not all about contracts. Some of it's about mental health, maybe. Some tips for young lawyers. You know, I have an audience, so it's really nice to be able to use that. And then I got into a blog discussion, three-way blog discussion with Ken Adams, a Seattle lawyer named Bill Carlton, and myself, about crowdsourcing legal documents and contracts. And so that was kind of fun. Here's my part of it. I actually met Bill. That's Bill on the right. Venkat Balasubramani, who's another blogger. They both live in Seattle. I was up in Seattle for a business trip not too long ago, well, a few years ago now. Anyway, we met. I met 2 or 3 other people who I never would have had a chance to meet, including Dan Harris, who promised me in a comment to my blog post that he would take me out to lunch if I was ever in Seattle. So of course I had to collect on that free meal. And then why blog? It's just fun. This is what I think about blogging. That's me on a tire swing. I know the picture's not the best. Barefoot, having fun in the summer. Lessons learned. Niche is powerful. It's interesting that just how powerful from a marketing perspective, having your own lane and letting people know what that lane is. It's very, very powerful. I've noticed that with my own blog. My wife, Andrea, her whole law, she's a lawyer also. She has her own firm. All of her business comes from actually using the principles that I said. We have done things right on her thing probably, but not for myself. Anyway, knowing who you are and being that person in business or whatever, it's really powerful. And people remember you. Most people here probably know dozens of business lawyers. You probably only know one contracts guy or one small business M&A guy, and that's what I do. So anyway, quality and content is is key. And then cornerstone content. And cornerstone content, as I understand it, are those few pieces that are just really, they're so important that they pretty much support your whole operation. So if you look at my blog statistics, 2 of my posts, the Battle of the Forums, the how to sign a contract, over the whole lifetime of the blog, have generated over 40% of my traffic. If you had another post, over 50%. 10 posts, over 80%. So most of that traffic, people are coming for the same thing because it's, I assume, kind of, my time's up. Apparently, it's you know, filling a hole that's out there. So find your voice, be yourself. Anyway, I just couldn't resist an original artistic piece for this presentation. Thinking about my blog and researching this really kind of brought me down memory lane. So this is my artist's rendition of me the morning before I went to work, my first day as a summer associate in 2002. And so you can see what it should look like. That's a selfie before selfies were cool. So got the arch in the background. In my mind, I was ready to take on the world, but if you look at it pretty closely, I've got wide eyes. I think maybe I might have been a little scared. I don't know. Any questions? And I'll let Glenda do the moderating.
So you talked about posting, Brian. How many different ways did you actually post the blog?
As far as the mechanical or the...
Well, no, LinkedIn, or how did you get it out there? What were your venues or avenues?
I focused only on the blog, but in conjunction with the blog, I launched a Twitter account called The Contracts Guy, Facebook page, and you know, my LinkedIn. The Twitter, I just love Twitter. One of the big disappointments in my life that there aren't more people in St. Louis that do Twitter. So, so I publish everything there. A lot of my real fun conversations happen through Twitter. LinkedIn's great for geographically. The problem with blogs and websites is I practice in Missouri and Illinois, so the people I know in Seattle and whatnot, for the most part, aren't going to help me on my practice. So.
You mentioned the email version of the blog. How do you sign up for the email version of your blog?
I don't know. Maybe I'll publish a link. I think there's a there's a sign-up form on the first page. So for the email version, I was thinking you were saying the RSS version. That might have disappeared. I've got a few little things I need to do to the blog to, you know, repair some things I've done in the past. I need people. They all charge money. I don't have resources.
How many words do you use for most of your blog posts?
I would say 700 to maybe 1,000. And one thing that I learned early on is I had heard that 350 is good. People don't have attention span. If you go over 600, they're going to quit reading. My best posts are way more than 1,000 words. So, in fact, my best post on my law firm blog page is probably 4,000 words. I mean, it's very, very long. And it gets the most people call me wanting to know. So, is that it? All righty.
All right.
Thank you very much.